Hi everyone, today we are talking about quadrants on the coordinate plane. As a review, you do not need to write down everything that we cover in this video, but be sure to jot down important information and at least one example of each type of problem that we'll cover. Also remember that you can pause the video to jot down important notes, rewind to view information again, and fast forward if you think you already got it. Just be careful, make sure that you don't fast forward too much that you miss out on something important. So last time we talked about the coordinate plane. It has the normal number line, and on top of it we have a number line going up and down. Now the coordinate plane, because of the two lines, will be divided into what we call four quadrants. And quadrants is an important vocabulary word. So it comes from the prefix quad meaning four or fourth. So examples of other words that have the quad in the beginning is quarter. So there are 4 quarters in a dollar, 4 quarters in a football game. Quadruplet means that you have 4 siblings that were born at the same time, kind of like a triplet or a twin. So 4 quadrants make up the coordinate plane. Make sure you have that jotted in your notes. The quadrants, now this is kind of counterintuitive. You would think that they would be going clockwise in the order. You would think it would start here with 1, 2, maybe 3, and then 4, like in a Z format, but it's not ordered that way. The quadrants are actually arranged in counterclockwise order, so against the direction that a clock would go in. And the first quadrant actually starts on the top right-hand corner. So it's the opposite of how you would read in English. If I invented this, I would have wanted to start here and then go in the opposite direction. So you have to remember that it's not quite what you expect it to be. I like to draw a C and remember that it's in the same direction that I draw this C. Or some people like to draw a Q, which is the same thing. So the first quadrant starts at the top right-hand corner, then we move to the second quadrant, top left-hand corner. The third quadrant is down to the left, and the fourth quadrant is down and to the right. So it's the opposite direction of a clock. So go ahead and jot this into your notes so that you got that. Something you also probably notice is that the numbers are written differently. They're written in what we call the Roman numerals. So instead of 1, 2, 3, and 4, the way we normally write it, we were writing it in Roman numeral. So 1 is just 1 dash up and down, 2 is 2 dashes up and down, 3 is 3 dashes up and down, and 4 is actually a I and a V. So that's because the Romans, their numbers are using addition and subtraction. So a V normally represents 5. So 1 in front of the V would be 5 subtracting 1, which is 4. I don't know, just when you thought that, it's enough math, they went and put math in the numbers as well. So just know that when there's a I and a V, it's not exactly letters, it's just how the Romans wrote their numbers. So each quadrant I like to think about them like neighborhoods. Okay, so if this was the entire city, then you kind of have your Quadrant 1 neighbors, your Quadrant 2 neighbors, Quadrant 3 and Quadrant 4 neighbors. And they're kind of divided by streets. So each of those neighborhoods will have their own personality for their ordered pairs. And I'll explain what that means. So Quadrant 1, which is the Roman numeral of just an I, those ordered pairs are only positive x's and y's. So if I plot a point here, it's positive for the x's and it's positive for the y's. So those are positives for both x's and y's. For Quadrant 2, there are negative values for x and positive values for y. So if you look over here, if I plot a point in this area anywhere, my x's are negative, and my y's, my flying up and down, is positive. And for quadrant 3, where the Roman numeral is 3i's, it's negative x's and positive y's. So right here is our quadrant 3, negative for the x's on the x-axis, and then negatives also for the y-axis. So all negatives here. Quadrant 4 is the last one. There are positive x's and negative y's. So all the points here have positive x's and negative values for the y's on the y-axis. Okay? So be sure to jot that down. Here is a good illustration of what that looks like. So we have quadrant 1 is positive and positive, and diagonal from quadrant 1 is quadrant 3, and you'll notice that they are the opposites. Instead of positive and positive, they're all negatives. So their borders are all negative. And then, just as you thought, quadrant 2 and 4, opposite from each other, are opposite ordered pairs of each other as well. Quadrant 2 has negative for x's and positive for y's, and quadrant 4 is flipped, positive for x's and negative for y's. So in this picture, they just put the colors in reverse so that you can see that. So it's the positives and negatives that are reversed in those different quadrants. Make sure that or something like that is in your notes so that you know the pattern. Okay, let's look at some examples on Khan Academy. So this problem on quadrants on the coordinate plane says to drag the point to plot 6, 0, and then select its location on the coordinate plane. So you want to drag this point to where 6, 0 is, and then you want to tell us which quadrant it actually belongs in. So 2 things you have to do for this problem. Go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own first. All right, so the first thing I got to do is plot 6, 0. So that means I have to get my order correct because this is an ordered pair. The order matters. It's an alphabetical order. X goes first and then Y. And remember, we're going to walk and then fly. So we're always going to start from the origin. This is telling us to walk to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to fly to 0. 0 means you're actually not flying, so it's going to stay right there. So that should be your location for 6, 0. Then we want to know, where is 6, 0 located on the coordinate plane? Is it the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, or x-axis and y-axis are also choices? So let's see. Well, I know that it's going to start by making a C when I'm naming my quadrants. So it's going to go in this direction. So this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Is this point in any of the quadrants? It is not. It's actually on an axis. So I can eliminate A, B, C, and D as answers because this point is not actually inside any of those 4 quadrants. It's actually on an axis. It is on the x-axis. So I can choose E for the x-axis for this problem. And that is correct. It's on the x-axis. So when it's right on the actual axis, that means it's just on that line. Let's try one more. Ooh, this one looks scary. So this one wants us to select the quadrant or axis where each ordered pair is located on a coordinate plane. go ahead and pause the video, try this on your own first. All right, so what I noticed is they did not give me a coordinate plane. This is why knowing the pattern is very important, or else you're going to have to plot all of that. So let me go ahead and set up my quadrant names. Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2, Quadrant 3, and Quadrant 4. And I'm just going to label like 2 digits on each of them, okay? So first I start off with the origin, that's 0. Then this is like my normal number line, x. X is the one that came first. So like a normal number line, 0 is in the middle, and then all my positives are on the right-hand side. And all my negatives are on the, left-hand side. Let me zoom in on that, okay? So label my quadrants. I put my x-axis first, that's the one that came first, alphabetical order, and it's a normal number line. I'm not going to put a whole bunch of numbers in there. I don't even care that it's messy, because I'm just sketching it. Now I'm going to put in my y-axis. That's like my thermometer. So it's going to have my 0 in the middle, and as it goes up, it gets to positive numbers. As it's going down, it's negative numbers. Okay? That's all I need for now. Now that I have this little cheat sheet sketch, I'm going to try and plot these points, kind of, okay? Just gonna ballpark it. So if I'm gonna plot -9, -8, I'm going to start at my origin. I have to go to -9. Negatives on the x-axis, walking, would be to the left. So I'm gonna pretend like I went to -8. Then I have to fly up and down to -8. So it's going to be somewhere over here. This is -9, -8. Okay? What quadrant would this end up in? Oh, that's Quadrant 3. So I can go ahead and put Quadrant 3. Doesn't matter, it's not exactly on its spot. I just want to know what area it's in. Okay, the next one, I have 1, 0. So I'm going to, again, start at my origin. I'm going to walk to 1, so that's right here. And then 0 is my fly, so that means I don't go anywhere. I just stay here. So this right here is 1, 0. Is that on any of my quadrants? Nope, it's not inside any of my quadrants. It's actually on an axis, and it's on x-axis. So that's my answer. Again, this is just a sketch. And then I have my third point is 7.5 and 2. They're both positive. So I'm going to start at origin. I'm going to walk to 7.5, kind of. Just going to pretend like I'm walking to 7.5. And then I'm going to fly up to 2. 1, 2. So it's going to end up here. 7.5 and 2. What quadrant is that going to end up in? You should have said Quadrant 1. It's in this neighborhood. So that's Quadrant 1. Okay? The other way, if you already know your patterns, is that you can use your patterns and draw yourself a sketch as well. So, if I know my pattern, then I would know Quadrant 1 goes first, Quadrant 2, Quadrant 3, Quadrant 4. Quadrant 1 starts off and it's positives and positives. Opposite of that is my negatives. Okay? And then here's where it gets a little tricky. Here are my negative x's. So negative is going to go first here and then positives. Positive for the y's. And then here is going to be the opposite. Positive for the x's. And then negative for the y's. Okay, and then once you know this little cheat sheet, then you'll see the first point is both negatives. Both negatives. So that would be Quadrant 3. Boom, we got that. Second one is 1, 0. So you still have to do a little bit of work there. Start at the origin, walk to 1, and then there you go. That's on the x-axis. Third point, they're both positive. What's both positive? Quadrant 1. So that's how we know it's on Quadrant 1. So by knowing the patterns, it will be a little easier. But if you don't know the patterns, you can just kind of sketch yourself out a really quick coordinate plane. So that's the answer to that. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions as you work on these problems. Knowing the pattern, again, is very important, but you can always sketch it out. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in class.